Our first encounter was in the city. What a woman! Eyes that pierced like fire. But I had no idea our fates were already intertwined. 2 days earlier, I had arrived in Al Ramal, a city that glittered with heat and the scent of dust and orange blossom. I was there to close a deal, a vast stretch of ancestral land coveted by many, but now mine as long as I agreed to the seller's peculiar terms. I signed the contract without blinking. My empire demanded expansion, and I had no time for sentiment. They mentioned a daughter in passing, as if she were an afterthought. "She will serve your house with grace," the father had said. I assumed she would be like the others, obedient, blank-eyed, resigned. I nodded, uninterested. Then came the city. I saw her across the crowded market, her veil slipping just enough to reveal eyes like obsidian fire. She moved with a grace I had only seen in dreams, her presence part silence, part rebellion. I watched as she argued with a vendor, fierce yet poised, like a queen unaware of her crown. She walked past me without notice, or perhaps she noticed and chose not to see. That intrigued me more than I expected. Later that evening, the family hosted a private dinner in my honor, and there she was, Amina, the daughter, the girl I had unknowingly already purchased. She didn't bow, didn't smile. Her gaze was distant, her silence heavier than the gold she wore. She was not afraid, only elsewhere. Her parents introduced her formally, but she said nothing, only nodded once, eyes never meeting mine. That night, I couldn't sleep. I, who had built cities and buried kings, was haunted by a girl who would not look at me. In the days that followed, I sought her presence in subtle ways. I walked the gardens where she liked to sit alone. I spoke to her gently, never with command. She responded with politeness wrapped in thorns. She thought me arrogant, a man buying land and lives. And she was right, until her eyes taught me to question everything I thought I owned. She didn't know yet, about the contract, about the truth, and I feared the day she would. The morning after that strange dinner, I lingered in the courtyard, pretending to read the blueprints for the estate's future renovations. In truth, I was waiting. I didn't know for what. Perhaps a sign, or maybe just the sound of her footsteps on the marble. She appeared like the wind, in flowing fabric the color of sand. Her gaze swept over me as if I were nothing more than a statue, part of the garden, unworthy of her attention. She didn't slow her pace. She carried a book in her hand, her back impossibly straight, her steps deliberate. I watched her walk away, and for the first time in years, something inside me stirred. Not desire, not yet. Something deeper. Recognition. Longing. I had signed a contract that included her name, yet I knew nothing about her, and she knew even less about what had been done to her. Later, I asked one of the housekeepers what she liked. "She spends most time with books, sir," the woman whispered, "and sometimes music late at night when she thinks no one listens." So that night, I wandered the halls, past the closed doors and painted archways, past the old oak chest her father had placed in the corridor as a decorative relic. Then I heard it, soft strings, plucked with aching slowness. A traditional oud melody, sad and ancient. Amina played like she was weeping through the instrument. I didn't enter. I listened. It was enough to know she felt something, enough to realize she still believed in beauty, despite everything. The next day, we crossed paths again, this time near the olive grove. She held a small basket of herbs and fruits. I greeted her. "Amina," I said gently. She paused but didn't turn. "I wanted to thank you for the music last night." Now she turned sharply. "You listened?" "Yes." She said nothing, her face unreadable, but her fingers gripped the basket tighter. "You play beautifully," I added. Her voice was cold. "I play for myself, not for guests." "I know." She tilted her head slightly. "Is that all?" "No," I said, stepping closer, but not too close. "I wanted to know if you'd show me the garden sometime. I'd like to understand what you've grown here." "They're not mine," she replied. "Just like the land. Nothing here belongs to me." She walked away, and I didn't follow. I stood alone under the ancient olive tree, the air thick with silence and citrus. I had built empires by knowing when to advance and when to wait. This would require patience far greater than any negotiation I'd ever faced. Over the next week, I learned to navigate her world. I stopped speaking to her directly unless she initiated. I left a book by the window seat where she liked to sit, a rare translation of Persian poetry. She didn't return it. I considered that a victory. Sometimes she would glance at me during meals, a flicker of curiosity, a question she would never ask. And one afternoon, when a storm came early and she was caught outside, I offered her my coat. She refused, but her fingers brushed mine for a second, just enough for the world to pause. That night I read the contract again, her name listed beneath the land as if she were a feature of the property. I had never felt so ashamed of my signature. I had always been a man who took what he wanted, but now I wanted nothing that wasn't freely given. I asked myself then, what would she do when she found out? Would she hate me forever? I couldn't tell her. Not yet. Not until she saw the man I was trying to become, not the man who had signed that paper. One evening near sunset, I found her alone on the rooftop, watching the horizon bleed into gold and crimson. I approached slowly. "You like the sky?" I said. "It doesn't belong to anyone," she replied. "No," I nodded. "But still, it watches us all." She turned to face me. Her eyes weren't angry this time, just tired. "Why are you here, really?" "Originally, for business, for land, for gain." I paused. "Now, I'm not so sure anymore." She studied me. "You think silence and books will change what you are?" I didn't answer, because part of me feared she was right. She exhaled slowly. "You can't buy redemption." "I'm not trying to," I whispered. "I'm trying to earn something different." She looked away, but she didn't leave. We stood there until the call to prayer echoed from the city below, and the wind lifted the edge of her scarf like a secret. For the first time, she didn't push me away. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a man who owned anything, only a man who hoped. The third week brought changes I hadn't expected. Amina no longer turned away immediately when she saw me. She still held herself at a distance, like a hawk that might fly at any moment, but there was less disdain in her eyes. Sometimes when I passed her in the courtyard or near the fountains, I'd see a softness in her features, quickly buried, but present. One afternoon I found her in the atrium, crouched near a dying jasmine vine. She was silent, focused, her fingers gently loosening the roots as if tending to a wounded child. "That one's nearly gone," I said. She didn't look at me. "Nothing dies unless we give up on it." I watched her for a moment, then knelt beside her. "May I help?" She hesitated. I half expected her to stand and walk away. Instead, she moved slightly to the side and handed me a small trowel. "Be careful with the roots," she murmured. We worked in silence. I had never touched the earth like that before, not since I was a boy. Dirt under my nails, the sun on my back, and beside me, a woman who didn't know she had changed the course of my life without a word. When we finished, she stood, brushing the dust from her dress. "You're not as clumsy as I expected," she said, almost smiling. "High praise," I replied. She glanced at me then, directly, and for the first time, she didn't look away. "Why do you really keep trying?" she asked. "Is it guilt, amusement, some foreign idea of saving the girl you bought?" The words cut like razors, though she spoke them calmly. "I didn't come here to buy anyone," I said carefully. "When I signed that contract, I didn't know they'd included you. I didn't know until later." She folded her arms. "And once you found out, I stayed. To collect what's yours." "No." To ask her if she'd let me stay. That silenced her. Her face changed, less anger, more confusion. She didn't know what to do with a man who didn't act like a man of power. And I didn't know what to do with a woman who made me doubt everything I had believed about myself. Over the next days, something between us shifted. Small moments stitched a fragile thread, her offering me a piece of sweet pomegranate in the garden, our fingers brushing again by mistake, a walk near the old irrigation canals where she shared a story from her childhood. The first time she laughed, a dry, surprised sound when I slipped slightly in the mud. I lived for those moments. I found myself waking before dawn, just to listen for her steps outside my window. My guards watched from a distance. The staff spoke in whispers. Everyone knew something unusual was unfolding, but none of them knew the weight I carried. The secret folded deep in my chest. One evening, I asked the family for permission to host a gathering for the village, a celebration of the land's renewal. Amina was there when I made the announcement. She narrowed her eyes, suspicious. "You don't care about these people," she said to me afterward. "I care about you," I answered quietly. "And you care about them." She didn't deny it, but she didn't smile either. As the day of the celebration neared, I received news that made my blood run cold. One of my advisors in Africa had reviewed the contract again, seeking clarifications for a related deal. He discovered a clause I had overlooked, one that specified Amina's legal transfer of guardianship, including future marital rights, to me. Not just service, ownership. I had never felt more ill. She wasn't just listed in the deal. She was the deal. I stared at the papers for hours that night. I could tear them, burn them, but it would change nothing. The truth would come out eventually, and when it did, I feared I would lose her forever. The night of the celebration arrived. Lights hung from the date palms, children ran barefoot through the alleys, and music rose like smoke into the sky. Amina wore deep green, embroidered with gold. She looked like she belonged to another era, a warrior queen disguised as a villager. I watched her dance with the women, her joy real for the first time since I arrived. And I realized something. I would rather lose her forever than keep her through silence and law. I had to tell her. That night, after the crowd had dispersed and the lanterns flickered low, I asked her to walk with me to the olive grove. She came. I took a deep breath. "There's something I must tell you," I said. "Something that might make you hate me." Her face grew still. "I won't stop you," she said. "Say it." And so I did. Everything. The silence after my confession stretched like a blade between us. Amina stood beneath the olive trees, her face pale in the moonlight, hands clenched at her sides. The wind moved through the leaves like a whisper of ghosts. I waited. She didn't scream, didn't cry. Her voice, when it finally came, was quiet. "So it's true," she said. "Yes." Her eyes searched mine, as if trying to catch a flicker of remorse or deceit. "You knew. All this time. You knew I was part of that contract and you said nothing." "I didn't know at first, but yes, I found out. Weeks ago. And you still came near me, still spoke to me, touched my life, lied with your silence. I didn't want to trap you. I wanted to— To what?" she snapped. And now the fire returned to her voice. "Win me. Tame me. Make me feel safe so when you finally revealed your chains, I'd accept them." "No," I whispered. "I wanted you to choose me before you ever knew you were already mine." Her breath caught. For a second I saw it, the collapse inside her, the war between what she felt and what she feared. Then she turned away, walking fast, the hem of her dress catching on the dry roots. I followed. "Amina, please." She spun around. "Don't speak my name, you don't have the right." "I'm releasing the contract," I said quickly. "Tomorrow, it's over. You'll be free. Completely." She stared at me, stunned. "You're lying." "I'm not. I've already prepared the papers. You'll have nothing tying you to me or my land. I want nothing from you except truth." She took a shaky breath. "Why now?" "Because I'd rather lose you in honesty than keep you through deceit." She closed her eyes. Her hands trembled, and I saw something else then. Beneath her rage, beneath her wounded pride, I saw heartbreak. "You broke something in me," she said softly. "I started to believe you were different. I am. Or I'm trying to be. I let you in," she whispered. "Little by little, against everything I was taught, against everything I feared. And you stood there with a secret burning in your hands and smiled like it didn't hurt." My voice faltered. "It did." She looked away. "I need time." And with that, she left me standing among the olives, under a sky too beautiful for the pain inside my chest. The next morning, I sent my lawyer to the city with the contract dissolution. It would be done in 24 hours. I told no one, not even her family. I wanted no ceremony, no explanation. That afternoon, she didn't appear in the courtyard, nor the next day. Her absence gnawed at me more than her anger had. At least with anger, there was fire. Now there was only absence, silence. On the third day, I received word from the kitchen staff. She had returned to her aunt's village in the hills. She had left. My world felt hollow. For weeks I remained in Al Ramal, oversaw the land restoration, spoke with villagers, attended the school opening Amina had suggested. I followed every idea she'd ever spoken aloud, as if by honoring her vision, I might keep her presence alive. I told myself I would not chase her, but I did. One evening, I rode out alone into the hills. The sun was sinking, casting long gold shadows over the stone paths. Her aunt's house was modest, covered in climbing vines and fig trees. I approached the gate with no guards, no gifts, just my voice. She was in the garden, kneeling by the well. When she saw me, her hands froze over the bucket. I stopped a few meters away. I had to see you, just once. She stood slowly. You shouldn't be here. I know. She didn't tell me to leave. She didn't invite me closer. We stood in a silence thick with memory. I tore up the papers, I said. But that wasn't enough. She tilted her head. I'm leaving soon, I said. Back to Africa. My work is there. My name, my cities, my legacy. But none of it means anything without someone who sees me. Her eyes softened. I came to say, I continued, that if you ever choose to come with me, it won't be as part of any contract. No promises, no chains, only love. Her lips parted, but no words came. I turned to go, then she spoke. Wait. I stopped. She walked to me, slowly, carefully. Her hands were trembling again, but not from anger this time. I hated you, she said. I still do, a little. I understand. But I also know what you've done since, what you've changed, and I've spent every day trying not to miss you. My heart nearly broke. She stepped closer. If we do this, it's on my terms. Yes. You will never own me. Never. And I choose when I leave. You always will. She looked up at me, those eyes like storms and stars. And then, finally, she nodded. Not a kiss. Not a vow. Just a beginning. The wedding was small. No cameras. No velvet thrones. No one from my world of diamonds and steel. Only her family, the villagers, a circle of women singing softly beneath the fig trees. Amina wore white, not the sterile white of wealth, but fabric hand-stitched by her aunt, laced with silver thread and scented with rosewater. We married beneath the olive tree where she once told me she belonged to no one. Now she stood before me not as mine, but as herself, free. I vow to protect your voice, I told her, to never silence it, to never own it. And I vow, she said, her voice steady, to walk beside you, not behind, never out of fear, only choice. There were no rings. She tied a string of her mother's hair around my wrist. I gave her an old coin from my homeland, pressed into her palm. It was done, and for the first time in my life, I felt whole. The days after our marriage were golden, quiet, tender. We walked the gardens again, but now her laughter echoed through them. We spoke of books, of building a school, of planting more jasmine. She began to write again, poems, short stories, letters she never sent. But one question still lingered. Africa. I never asked her outright. I told her the decision was hers, always. Yet every night as I watched her sleep, I wondered what she would choose. Then one afternoon she approached me under the sun. She held 2 bags. I've made my choice, she said. My heart pounded. She placed one bag at my feet. I will go with you, she whispered. But I'm not leaving who I am behind. You shouldn't, I said. She took my hand. I'll bring the desert with me. Its silence, its strength, and every lesson it carved into my bones. We left the next morning. The villagers gathered to say goodbye. Her aunt wept, pressing a necklace into Amina's hand. I saw pride in their eyes, not because she was leaving, but because she was choosing. For the first time in generations, a daughter was not being taken. She was walking forward, with love, on her own terms. In Africa, she transformed the house. She planted fig trees where there had been marble. She opened the library to local children. She created a sanctuary in a place once built for show. She taught me to live without conquest, to speak with silence, to listen with my heart. And some nights, when the wind came from the north, she'd sit by the window, look toward the invisible deserts of her homeland and say, I never left. I just expanded. She never gave up her name. She never changed her fire. She never let me forget who she was before me, and I loved her more for it. If this story touched your heart, leave a rating from 0 to 10 in the comments. And if you believe true love still exists, subscribe to Written Destiny Official. Here, every story has a soul.